Hey, you've tuned into Math with Mr. C, and this is the last lesson for topic 9. This is called Solving Equations. We're putting all of our skills together from 8 and 9. Exciting stuff. Once you have this written with your name, the date, and the topic, moving on in 3, 2, 1. Please check your homework from 9-5. Moving on in 3, 2, 1. Solving equations. How can you solve equations involving fractions and mixed numbers? Melissa split a 6-foot long strip of fruit leather into 2 pieces as shown below. What is the length of the shorter piece of fruit leather? Use the equation 3 3/4 plus x equals 6 to solve the problem. So I'm going to go ahead and guess that 6 feet's the total length of this whole rope. It looks like a fruit by the foot or something. And that she split one section into 3 3/4, and she wants to find out what's left over. And so we're going to use skills that we've developed in the past to solve this problem. So just to show you a picture, 6 is the total length of strip. She split 1 into this big, and we want to find out what this x is, this unknown amount, this shorter piece. And so, just like in the past when we did adding and subtracting fractions or mixed numbers, we're going to use an inverse relationship and properties of equality. So we're going to subtract 3 3/4 from both sides to get x alone. So we did have 3 3/4 plus x. We're going to subtract 3 3/4 from both sides, because anything you do to one side you need to do to the other. And we did the inverse, or the opposite of adding 3 3/4, so subtracting it. So now our equation looks like x equals 6 minus 3 3/4. How do I solve this? Well, I'm going to give you some help on that right now with a clue word of basket. What do I write? So we have our problem of x equals 6 minus 3 3/4. I'm going to pull into my background knowledge and know that I cannot subtract these right now because the 6 does not have a denominator. So I'm going to change that to 6 wholes minus 3 3/4. Next, I'm going to change this 3 3/4 into an improper fraction. I have taught you different ways to subtract and add fractions, and this is one way that I have taught a few of you, but it can be the easiest way to actually do this. We know how to make this into an improper fraction, and now I'm looking at this. Can I now subtract 6 wholes minus 15/4? Oh no, they need the same denominator. So I'm going to need to find out a number that both 1 and 4 can multiply to. They can both multiply to 4. So I'm going to make 6 wholes with a 4 on the bottom minus 15/4. Well, I multiplied 1 by 4 to get 4, so I'm going to multiply this 6 by 4 as well and get 24. And now I can subtract. X equals 24 minus 15, that's 9/4. Next, all I need to do is make that into a mixed number. Bringing up my 1, my answer is 2 1/4. Let's see if that checks out. My original problem was 3 3/4 plus x equals 6. If I plug in 2 1/4 into x, does that make it true? Oh wow, it does. If I add these fractions first, I get 4/4, which is 1, and then if I add these, I get 5, so 1 plus 5 is 6. We found our answer. Moving on in 3, 2, 1. You do not have vocab notes today. And here are 2 problems for example 1. I'm fully aware that when we get to this lesson, we have gone over all of this material, but since we're introducing back in addition and subtraction, and we're doing different operations, it might seem difficult. And so be patient with yourself if you don't get it right away, and that's why I'm here to help. And we have gone over this before, but we're just finding out what variables equal using all the skills that we've gotten from chapter 8 and 9, and it's really going to show you how much you've learned. And it might be a challenge, but that's okay. So first, let's look at this subtraction equation. After you have y minus 4/9 equals 5 1/3 written in your notes. I see on the side of y that it's y minus 4/9. I want y by itself, so I'm going to do the opposite, or the inverse of subtracting 4/9, which is adding 4/9. As you see here, I added 4/9 to both sides. When you subtract 4/9 and you add 4/9, those cancel out. So now I have y equals 5 1/3 plus 4/9. I remember from my last example in this lesson that I wanted you to make this 5 1/3 into an improper fraction. So I'm going to do that now. 5 times 3 is 15. 5 and 15 plus 1 is 16. So I have 16/3 plus 4/9. I'm thinking what a common denominator is between 3 and 9. Oh, I can multiply both of those to 9. So I'm going to keep this one, and I'm going to multiply this one by 3. So I'm going to multiply both the top and the bottom by 3. So I have y equals, I have 9 on the bottom, and I need to ask myself what 16 times 3 is. And that's 48 plus 4/9. Now we can add these because we have the same denominator. So we have 52/9. That's an improper fraction. I'm going to need to make that into a mixed number. Y equals So my final answer is 5 7/9. Let's look here. If I put 5 7/9 back in for y, 5 7/9 minus 4/9 equals 5 1/3. Well, if I actually subtract that, I get 5 3/9, which, when simplified, would be 1/3. So I did get the problem right. Nice job. Now let's do the multiplication. Number 2. 3/8 times n, we know that we read this times n, equals 15. So on the same side as n, I know you can't see it, but it's multiplication. And so I'm asking myself what the opposite of multiplying by 3/8 is. And that's dividing by 3/8. And I need to do that to both sides. So I have 3/8 times n divided by 3/8 equals 15 divided by 3/8. If I do anything to one side, I need to do it to both sides to make it equal. These cancel out when you multiply by 3/8 and you divide by 3/8. They cancel out to 1. And so now we have n equals 15 divided by 3/8. Good thing that I already learned what to do when I divide by a fraction. I know that I'm going to have n equals 15 wholes. I'm going to change that to times the reciprocal, 8/3. Oh, I see I can simplify. Divide these both by 3. Multiply across. I get 40 wholes. N is equal to 40. Does that make sense? 40 up here. Does 3/8 times 40 equals 15? I'm going to need to write that in. 3/8 times 40 wholes. Does that equal 15? I can simplify that. It does equal 15, so I got the correct answer as 40. Moving on in 3, 2, 1. Here's example 2. Please try to do both of these by yourself, showing you the answer for number 1 in 3, 2, 1. As I looked at this problem, t minus 2/3 equals 25 3/4, I saw on the same side as t is minus 2/3. I know I need to do the inverse of that to get t by itself. The inverse of subtracting is adding 2/3, and I did that to both sides. These will cancel out, so now I just have t equals 25 3/4 plus 2/3. I can't add these together right now. They don't have the same denominator, but I know that I want to make this into an improper fraction first, so it's easier to add. T equals 4 times 25, oh that's 100, plus 3, 103 fourths, plus 2/3. They don't have the same denominator, and I'm asking myself, what's a number that both 4 and 3 can multiply to? Oh, 12. So I have 103 fourths, and I need to make it so that 12 is on the bottom. I'm going to multiply it by 3 over 3. 12, 309. So now I have 309 twelfths. Plus, we have 2/3. What do I multiply that by so that 12 is on the bottom? 4. 8 twelfths. Plus 8 twelfths. I can add them together, as now we have the same denominator. I'm going to continue carrying down my t equals so I don't forget about that. When I add them together, I get 317 twelfths. You only have one step left. That's very exciting. to make this into a mixed number. So I'm going to actually divide 317 divided by 12. With a final answer of 26 and 5/12. Showing you the answer for number 2 in 3, 2, 1. Because v was on the same side as 5/8, v plus 5/8, we want to do the inverse of plus 5/8, which is minus 5/8, to both sides to get v by itself. These will cancel out, so we get v equals 9 1/3 minus 5/8. We're going to make 9 1/3 into an improper fraction so that we can subtract. Now we have v equals 28/3 minus 5/8. We need to find a common number that 3 and 8 can both multiply to, and that is 24. So what do I multiply 3 by so that 24 is on the bottom? I'm going to multiply it by 8. This number is going to get a little bit bigger, but just remember this is an easy way to get the answer. We will get the answer in the end. So we have 28 times 8, getting 64, 224, and 3 times 8 is 24, minus, what do we multiply 5/8 by so that 24 is on bottom? Oh, 3. So 5 times 3 is 15, 8 times 3 is 24. Now I can subtract because I have the same denominator. 224 minus 15. And you get 219 24ths. Making that into a mixed number is my last step, and then I will have my answer. And I got 9 3 24ths. Simplifying that to 9 1/8. You can divide 3 and 24 by 3. 9 1/8 is my answer. Moving on in 3, 2, 1. For independent or partners practice 4, 9, 6, I just have 2 problems for you, number 4 and 5. I'm going to show you the answer for number 4 first. In 3, 2, 1. Make sure that you have both the answers of 4 and 5 done before this. Now talking about number 4. So I wrote out this. I saw that it was y divided by 4/7. I need to do the inverse of whatever's on the same side as y. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 4/7 so that we get rid of this. These will cancel out. So we have y equals 8 5/9 times 4/7. I remember that I need to make this into an improper fraction before I can multiply. And I got 77/9 times 4/7. Luckily, we can simplify, dividing this by 7. Then multiply across. 44/9 equals y. Last step is to make that into a mixed number again. Y equals 4 8/9. Now let's talk about number 5 in 3, 2, 1. First I asked myself, what was the opposite of multiplying by 7/9? I knew that it was 7/9 times g. I knew that I needed to do the opposite of multiplying by 7/9, which is dividing by 7/9 on both sides. Because we have multiplying by 7/9 and dividing by 7/9, those cancel out, so I have g equals 49 divided by 7/9. I know that's actually g equals 49 wholes times 9/7, multiplying by the reciprocal. Luckily, we can simplify here, dividing both of these by 7, and then multiplying across, getting 63 wholes, or 63. G equals 63. Moving on in 3, 2, 1. Once you're done with this, you can complete your homework, and then make sure to click the link for Khan Academy video and practice if you're done before you do anything else, and then you may choose one of these 2 options. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you learned a lot. Thanks for being in my class. You're awesome.